Well, howdy, and welcome back to RC Restomod. Today we're going to start putting our slash back together, and I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks that I've picked up on, and what I can figure out for the easiest way to go about doing it. And I'm going to try to keep the explanations to a minimum and kind of blast through this so that we can get on to um, modifying the slash once it's all together and making it look cool, and then getting out there and bashing on it a little bit because we're going to demonstrate that it works well. Anyway, one of the first things that you want to do when you're going to put a car together after you've taken it apart for a full cleaning is see if there's a kit. If the vehicle is available as an unassembled kit, you can go online and find the manual. And we've been able to do that for a two-wheel drive slash because it is available as an unassembled kit. And here we have it brought up on a tablet. And what that manual will show you, first there's legalese. Let's get through all the legalese and stuff. It shows you how to measure your different kinds of screws. Like it shows here that a countersunk you measure to the top of the head, and on a button head you measure from just below the head out to the end. Here it shows the abbreviations they'll use. A countersunk cap screw, like this one, they're going to use CCS for it. Cap screw, if you look, I call it a socket head, but it's got the, see if we got one handy. We do. I'll bring that up and show you like that. They're going to call that a cap screw. Then we have the flathead cap screw used for motor mounts and such. You get when you're going to bite against a plate, that bigger head makes it bite on a larger area and holds things more steady. Anyway, as you go through, you can see all the different types of hardware and the abbreviations they use. You've got the types of, they recommend putting silicone in some places, and they've got, tell you what kind of grease to put different places, and then they've got a picture for the oil bottle when you fill shocks. I did the shock filling off screen because Traxxas has a really good video on that. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. For a basher, follow those instructions to the letter, and it goes really easy. We had some technical difficulties because I've already assembled the differential. I don't really know that I want to take it apart, so we'll go through the next part showing all the things, but it's together. And the differential, of course, allows one of the rear wheels to turn faster than the other in a corner. These are not sealed. If you have a more upscale kit or an upscale car, they'll have O-rings that seal. They'll have a gasket here and O-rings where the two outdrives come through. And that allows you to put different viscosities or thicknesses of oil up inside the differential, and that'll influence how much resistance to that free spin you get. So this one, you just put some grease on the gears and call it good, or if you're trying to drag race or something, you might fill it up with something like foam earplugs or something to make it lock up so that it'll launch in a straight line better. But ours is a backyard basher. We're going to want it to turn, so we did not do that. But anyway, I followed these simple instructions and put the differential together. Then it talks about shocks, and once again, they've got good instructions here. Traxxas also has a very good video on it, so I'm not gonna mess with that. We'll go ahead and show the full procedure for putting a transmission together. Now, John did call me up. He'd done some swapping around on some slash stuff, and he says, hey, I've got something I cannot use because I have to have factory parts due to class rules. but you're building a basher. There's no rules for bashing, so I would like to make a trade with you. So he traded me my factory gray housing for this baby, a lime green transmission housing, which, if you'll remember, we have lime green front arms and we have some lime green on the body. So this thing's gonna look really cool, but this is gonna be the transmission housing we put together. So I'm gonna turn it where I can do this upside down. And we're gonna need some ball bearings. And those ball bearings were salvageable. I put all the ball bearings in a pile over here. And we need, what size? 5 by 11 by 4. So we'll take our calipers and turn them on. And guys, these are cheap calipers. They're not scientific grade by any means. Like I say, I picked these up at Harbor Freight. So I did not clean the bearings because soaking them in soapy water, the water could get up into where the balls are and the grease is, and that's not good for them. So we'll just wipe them down as we go. These bearings, you can't spin them with your finger anywhere near as fast as the mechanisms in the truck will. So if they feel less than perfect, replace them. I have a bunch of slash screws, so I didn't for this build, but most of the time when I start working on a used RC car, I go ahead and go on A-Main Hobbies or something like that, and I buy a bearing kit. It's not that expensive. I think the most expensive one I bought was for the Truggy I used to have, and it was huge. It had 4-wheel drive. It had a lot more bearings than this one does, and it was still less than $30. So I highly recommend doing that. You'll be much happier in the end. And these bearings are very far. It takes a lot of tear down of the car to replace these. So we're going to make sure we put good ones in it. In my stash, I had this bag here, which I believe is the right bearing. So it needs to be, according to this, 5 by 11 by 4. So let's check the inside. That's 4.8. Now guys, these are not scientific grade calipers. And we are 0.2 of a millimeter off of what it says. So that is plenty close. That is the right thing. The outside 10.9, we're 0.1 off on the outside diameter. And on the thickness, we're 0.1 off. That's it, because like I say, these are not scientific grade and you don't really need them to be. If you're within 0.3 of a millimeter, it's the right thing. So we're going to use we're going to put 4 brand new bearings up in the transmission housing. Those wheel bearings can be replaced in a couple of minutes. This thing's probably going to take well over an hour to get out, replace. You're going to find other things the matter that you want to fix while you got it apart. So anyway, let's press the bearings. You don't need any fancy tools for that, just a thumb. Like this one's a little tight, so just kind of walk it in. Push on that side and then that side. Just kind of back and forth until it's all the way in. Those are both all the way in. This step is done. Now we need to find this part, which your slipper clutch goes on there, and that's the first gear in your transmission. Oh, there it is. And don't worry guys, right now it's a pain to dig through everything, but as we get farther and farther along, there's less and less to dig through, and so it goes a lot faster. So I was able to find this part with it, that washer stayed in place. And our housing does look slightly different than this one because it's aftermarket special race car stuff. The little wing that you see here bolts onto these. It's a separate part because it allows you to make some changes that are not, they'd be really handy on drag cars, but not so much on a basher. So we're not gonna, we just got the basic one lined up and ready to be installed on it. So this just drops through right there. Now the first gear is in our transmission. Move over to the next page. All right, we've got an idler gear assembly. That's right here. And it needs to have 2 more of those 5x11 ball bearings put in it. And now that mounts on an idler gear shaft. Well, we saw that just a second ago. Then that sits. So we got the little naked hole, the little blind hole there. We lost our washer. I'll kind of set it up straight where I can push that in without losing the washer on it. So a washer on either side. Give that a spin. It's very, very smooth. Feels great. And it wants us to put a drop of grease on that gear. So we'll take our little tube of grease, put a drop of grease on it, then we'll spin that around. And put another drop. All right. Now there's a little on all the teeth. I feel better about that. Now we're going to drop our differential in. And it goes with the, see the gear's way down on one side and then the plastic sticks up higher. So the plastic side sticks up. That goes down in its hole. And it says that we need to put a drop of grease on this. And I am going to put a drop there, a drop there, one more there. We're gonna add a little extra grease. It's not gonna be enough to cause it to bind up from hydraulic pressure or anything. It'll just make it run really smooth and be quiet. All right, that is together. Now we take the other side of our housing and it goes down over the top. Just like that. Now we're going to put it together with, look at there, we got all different sizes of screws going on here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are 3 by 23 button head cap screws. And then we need 1 3 by 20. When we looked at the first page, it showed us how to measure button head screws. And it's from the bottom of the head to the end. So that is 22.7. That's within our tolerance. That's a 22 by 3. And that's 3 millimeters across, 2.7. So that's close enough to 3. That's what we need. Dealing with a used car, this is a thing that will happen. We don't have 5 of these screws. We only have 4. So to find the 5th one, the first place I'm going to look is in here. And this is a screw kit that I got off Amazon. Had like 500 screws for about 20 bucks. It's plenty reasonable. Okay guys, if you were doing if you were working on your only RC car at this point, you'd honestly be at a standstill. It'd be time to order the correct screw. But luckily, I've been around a little while and I've managed to collect a whole lot of excess junk. So let's see how long this one is. That's 22. That is a 3 by 22. I'm comfortable being short 1 millimeter. Now, another thing we've got to consider with ours is that because it's aftermarket, it's not exactly like the book. We're gonna have to vary just a skosh here. We gotta do things a little bit different. We're also going to need to install this plate, because you can see the equivalent to that plate is made in to one side of the transmission housing. So we'll turn it the same way it is in the picture, which is like that. And you'll see that the plate goes on this side over here. And this is what it goes, like that, and it holds your motor on. But it's got two countersunk screws that will go in place of some of the button heads that we had to have there. So we may have to get just a skosh creative to make this work. But I think we can do that. This is RC Resto Mod, not RC Build. All right, instead of floundering around and guessing, I'm going to okay, we found it. That's got all, that shows all the parts that go to it. And when we start looking at it, let's see if there's a, oh, there we go. There's the how to put it together. Whoa. Well, things are quite a bit different. All right, we don't need to worry about what's going on in the bottom here, but we do need to worry about what goes on up top. Okay, let's look at it from that matches. The top screw right there says it needs an M3 by 16 millimeter button head. Well, that's not a stock part, and we don't have the RPM parts because we got it looking like it looks right now. So let's check and see if I've got M3 by 16 millimeters. That's going to be fairly close. Let's see how long it is. Guys, that was a lucky guess. That is an M3 by 16 millimeter. I mean, I kind of know what 16 millimeters looks like, but that was a straight up luck that I got it on the first try. So we'll put it right there. And your M3s are going to install with your 2 millimeter hex driver, so we'll go ahead and run that in. We won't tighten it, we're just gonna run it up to flush. Then evidently we skipped that hole, and then that is stock, varies by vehicle. I do think that has to do with the bumper assembly, so we don't need to worry about that just yet. We need to mainly worry about up here around where the gears are. So we've got a M3 by 20 millimeters. Okay, we'll worry about these here in just a minute. Stock 3 by 23 button head. Through that hole, we already found those. So we've got this one. We've got this one. This one. We're not worried about those just yet. and that one. Now we're going to need to flip it over. And this is where our engine plate, our motor plate goes on. It's going to go something like this. Down here, that is a 3x12 button head. And it doesn't say stock, so we're going to pull it out of our screw kit. 3x12. So that 3x12 button head goes right there. Just like that. Then we need a M3x10 to go here. And that 10 sits right there. And now M3x25 millimeters. That is a long countersunk screw. I do not think I have it in my screw kit. No, because that's a full inch long. I don't have any that long in there. Let's check our accumulated overstock stuff I've got kind of thrown in here. Here's all the long screws are in here. Well, guys, unfortunately, that puts us at a standstill because we need some 3x25 countersinking screws. We need 2 of them that I do not have. That's a problem with using aftermarket parts and modifying things. We'll go ahead and put on what we can here. This appears to go on like that. And they get held on with M3x12, which I know we have because we found those before. Okay, so they made us put that piece on there. And what is that whole piece there for? It's so that you can reinstall the gear cover. I have to take that back out because that goes over the gear cover, but they at least told us what size it is, so we won't tighten that one, but that's nothing but to hold your dust shield in place. Okay. And then these little wings that we have here. Let's see, that's the right side. They'll go on like that when we install the transmission, but it will require a longer screw, and then we have to put a lock nut on top because it doesn't leave enough threads to hold it steady. So that's about as far as we can take the transmission right now until we get those 2 long countersunk screws. All right, now that we got that together, let's see what's next. All right, this piece they show right here is the fixed gear adapter. That's not a necessary part. I think that's an update with the BL2S motor, which we're not going to be using, but that makes it to where your gear mesh is supposedly perfectly set. And while it might work with the factory housing, it's definitely not going to work with an aftermarket housing. So we will not be using that part, but we will need our motor. All right. We'll shove the motor in there and we'll kind of adjust it around. I know you guys can't see it, but I can see a threaded hole shining through right there. So I'm going to take one of my flathead cap screws right there. And everything's sliding around. Okay, I can see it. All right, that one is started. And I'll rock it around until that one appears to be lined up. There's our other motor mount screw. A little tricky to get that lined up because it's so hard to see. If you're younger than me, that may be quite easy to see, but for us old farts, that's a bit tough. We'll just snug these right now because we're gonna have to set some preload. They're wanting us to install parts that are gonna be so big that we can't get to those two screws. So we're stuck on the rear module assembly. Yep, we're stuck right now. We're gonna have to go purchase those two screws that we need. Unfortunately, it's gonna take me about an hour, but I really love you guys, so I'm gonna go do it right now. Okay guys, when you need RC screws, do not go to Lowe's or Home Depot unless that's your only option, because nobody maintains their supply stuff very good. But this is our local Ace Hardware store. It's the kind of place where only the old men go. But look at how much metric small hardware they have. I did have to get a little creative because to find a 25mm long countersunk screw for our transmission, I had to go Phillips head, which hurt my heart just a little bit, but I did it anyway. But look at all these socket head, all the way from 6mm up to 40mm. You may find these anywhere on your RCs, but find you the hardware store that the old men go to, and you'll be able to find your screws that you need for your car. All right, dudes. Back from a trip all the way across town to the old man hardware store where you can get goodies like that. I've got a direct replacement for, these are the ones that go in our spur gear to hold our slipper clutch together. And this is the closest thing I could get for our, it's Phillips head. That's a little disappointing, but it's the right thread, right length. So we can put it all back, we can put it back together. Let's see what's next on our instructions. We've got the motor mounted. Now it's time for the slipper clutch. All right, and it shows we use a 2 by 10mm pin. See what size this pin is. 1.9, that is pretty dang close to 2. Ooh, that is a 12mm pin, not a 10mm. See about that one. That's a 12mm pin. Well, we're gonna have to go looking for a 10mm pin. All right, that one is 2mm by, come on. My big old fingers, it's hard to hold a 10mm pin sideways. 9.6, that is 2 by 10. So anyway, we look down here and we'll insert our pin through the hole in this shaft. The easy way to do that is with a pair of needle nose. So we'll take our needle nose pliers, roll it around till we can see the hole. And there it is going through the hole. Perfect. The next part to go in is the slipper pressure plate. And so there's a slot there, and that slot sits down over the pin. Just like that. Next comes the slipper pressure disc, or slipper steel disc. There's some grooves on this side, so we're going to go ahead and flip it over to the fresh side. So we'll set that on there. You line the little pins attached to the pressure plate into the slots on that. The friction pads we already have on the slipper hub, so we'll just go ahead and slide that on there. Next up we have a ball bearing. It's another one of our 5x11x4s, and this one's fairly easy to get to, so I'm not going to be quite as uptight about it needing to be new. It feels really nice, so we can press that down onto the shaft. Next comes our spring. There's our slipper clutch spring, and then outside of that is a nylon locking nut, just like that one. Go ahead and give that a start. Then we put our spur gear on. And we're going to have to, there's a flat blade screwdriver. Gonna have to reach in there and kind of poke around till we get it to, it's going to be a little bit tedious to get that to line up. That's very close. Take our little tool and all right, that's lined up pretty well. We got 3 of these to get started. One, 2. Those are metal screws screwing into metal. Those like to back out. So what we have here is some blue Loctite. I like the gel. It's a lot less messy than the liquid. So we put a dot on those screws. And we'll go ahead and tighten it because they're all lined up now. Now, we do need to put a pinion gear on. Okay, and initially, what we need to do is make sure the teeth on the spur gear are lined up in and out with the teeth on the pinion. So we'll slide that pinion until it lines up. Then give it, well, the other thing we have to do is make sure that I don't know if you can see it, but there's a flat spot on the shaft, and we want our set screw to go down onto that flat spot. So it's lined up in and out, and on the flat spot, boom. There we go. Now setting the gear mesh, what we're going to do there is put a piece of paper in it, and we're going to squeeze that in there about as tight as we can. And once we get it squeezed in, we're going to tighten up these 2 screws that hold the motor in place. Make it tight there. Make it tight there. Then we'll roll the pinion to spit the paper out. And it's actually a little too tight. You want it to kind of rattle, just to, because that did me wrong. Let's try doubling up this paper. This is very thin paper. So let's pull that apart. We'll double it up. Give her a squeeze. Give that a tighten. We'll roll that out. There we go. Just a little bit of play there. That's perfect. Okay. Tighten the slipper clutch adjusting nut clockwise until the slipper clutch adjusting nut is fully compressed, and then turn the slipper clutch nut counterclockwise 1 full turn. So let's see if we can hold it this way. I see the problem that we have with turning this. So we have to have a way to lock it down, because when I turn this, it's turning the out the drive shafts, or the part that goes out and drives the drive shaft. So we're gonna jam a screwdriver in here and get it. Okay. That spring is fully compressed, and then we're going to come off 1/2 of a turn, 1 turn. That is the recommended setting. Now we do know from earlier that this has to come out to put this cover on. See, if you're using factory parts, you use an 8mm screw, but since we're using aftermarket, we're 12mm, and we found that out on RPM's website. So that's where that goes. And then up here, that's going to be a stock part, because it's plastic right next to plastic. That'll be a 3x8. Now that's together. All right, we've got the rebuild kit for these drive shafts. Now let's look and see what kind of online resources we have on how to fix those. No instructions whatsoever given in the packaging. So let's go Traxxas. All right, looks as though Traxxas just gives a description and a part number rather than instructions. So
we'll get out our goodies. We've got some grease, got 6 boots, and some screw pins. So we got the little steel pins. Looks like we got 4 that are just alike, and 2 of these and 4 of these that are just alike. That tells me there's 2 for each one. And come in and we're going to see if we can't get it going out of it. See if we can get them pretty well installed before we put the grease in, because this is terrible. Okay.
Damn, there's one. Now we got to do it again. Okay. And the other parts that came in our kit, these two little pins, they're going to thread into metal, but when you get new ones from Traxxas, if you look, it's got some Loctite already on it. So let's wipe our fingers down. There's that one. There's that. And then we'll put our other small boot over the outside. That part's ready to go back together. All right. Next up, we've got a rear shock tower. And then we've got rear camber links. Did buy some new ones of these just to be sure I had everything, and they were like $4. It shows this going into the top hole. Just like that. Okay. That completed that step. Sits on the transmission right there. With 3x12s. Okay. It's got that part done. And we have this part, which looks different than that one because the instruction book they're currently putting online is for the clipless body system, which we do not have. Now it's time for our rear suspension arms. Aha. Now we have to go back. That's the left side. That goes like that. Now we need to go back to our RPM. Okay. M4 by 18 and M4 by 12 countersunk or flathead is what goes up through the bottom. All right, this assembly goes over the back of the so that has to sit in there and then get sandwiched. So this has to go on now, even though Traxxas doesn't do that when they build a plain factory truck. The 18 goes through this hole, through there, and that, I believe, is going to be a 2.5 that turns that in. Let's go ahead and okay, that goes there. And then we had an M4 by 12 that will go through this hole. And that one gets a lock nut put on it. So we'll take our wheel wrench. All right, that's on there good and tight. Now we'll take our other little wing, which we're going to need for the other side. Let's get another M4 by 18 threaded through this so that everything's lined up good before we get it too tight to mess with. Okay. Now we can give that a tighten. All right, now our transmission can sit down on that.
Yeah. So I have to pull that away.
This is some of that custom stuff, guys, and custom stuff is always a bit more difficult than just putting factory stuff in, but hopefully worth it. Okay, now we need to put our left side rear arm on. That's the left side. They're showing the pin coming in from the rear. So now that we got that 2 foot, we got that in there, let's give it a tighten. That's pretty smooth. We're ready to go there. Now we'll put the right one on. There's that. Now we have these. Okay, we have to build that.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
Okay. I got 3x18s. All right, that is together. All right, guys, I think that's all. Well, we still have custom front arms, but I think they're going to be a whole bunch in front knuckles, but I think they're going to be a lot easier to fit. Anyway, that's where we are. So let's see what we got there. Oh, we've already got that part installed. They're putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got tube. All we have to do for that step down there is put those two in. Got that together. Guys, I know I'm looking a little rough this morning, but this was supposed to be a single episode of putting the whole thing back together. It ain't working out that way. It was way too long. The editing's been a freaking nightmare. So I'm busting it down into two. Looks like the rear suspension and transmission is going to take up a whole episode. We're going to stop here and pick up again the next episode. I promise you, we're going to finish the car. And then the one after that, we're going to test it, see how we did. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Honestly, I'm not real I hate, if you've made it this far, man, I really appreciate you. I'm not completely thrilled with this one, but bear with me. They're going to get better as I learn. Just learned how to put the text on just a few minutes ago. Anyway, y'all have a great day. do great things and have a good time, and let's charge some batteries, get some RCs out, and kick some dust up. Anyway, we'll catch you next time.